Now let us discuss the structure of education in India. When we are talking about structure of education in India, here we are going to discuss how the education is organized in India. What is the hierarchy that is followed in India as far as school education is concerned? Now when I am talking about school education is divided into different levels, starting from pre-primary education to secondary education to higher secondary education. Then after that, the child or a person goes to college education and university education and so on and so forth. Now this structure of education, school education, is divided into three levels: preschool education, elementary or primary education and secondary education. So there are three levels of school education in India. In secondary education again, the secondary education is divided into two levels: lower secondary and higher secondary. So in this way there are different levels of education in India. Now let us come back to the first level, that is preschool education. When the child is of the age group 3 to 6 years, the child is put up in a preschool education. And this preschool education is generally labeled as nursery education, lower KG education and senior KG education. The aim of preschool education is to prepare a child to enroll himself or herself for elementary education. And the purpose basically here is to prepare a child for socialization. Because in the process of education, the child is coming to school, and when the child comes to school, it is expected that he should be socialized, he should mingle with others. So that particular part is taken care in preschool education. Now preschool education is not the responsibility of Government of India. So often it is offered by private institutes. Various private institutes, they start up their nursery classes, lower KG and upper KG classes. So it is a responsibility of private sector. But after preschool, the next stage is elementary education, which is the responsibility of the state government. We have schools run by the private institutes as well as the state government. State government does make provision of certain amount of funds for this elementary or primary education. This elementary or primary education is generally given to the child of the age group 6 to 14 years. And in India, as per the constitutional provision, it is free and compulsory to all. It is mandatory for all children of the age group 6 to 14 to enroll themselves in the process of education. So it is compulsory for everybody to have an education if the child belongs to 6 to 14 years. Now the next stage is secondary education. Secondary education generally starts from the standard 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. Standard 9th and 10th is considered as a lower secondary and standard 11th and 12th is considered as a higher secondary. After passing the examination of 10th, the student may decide to continue the education in the school itself as a higher secondary education, or the child may go to any vocational courses or any other courses which are offered in different colleges. So, school education in India basically has three levels: preschool, primary and elementary and secondary. So in this way there are three levels of school education in India as far as structure of education is concerned. Education is essential for an individual, for a society and also for a nation. So when we are looking at education, we are expecting education to be served an individual, to serve a society and also to serve a nation. So let us have a look at what are the functions of education. When we are talking about functions of education, here we need to emphasize on what education does or what education is expected to do. So education is expected to do certain things for an individual. Education needs to develop an individual. Education also needs to develop a society. Education also needs to develop a nation. So in this way, when we are talking about functions of education, we are going to look upon education function for an individual, education function for a society, and education function for a nation, because education needs to serve all these three aspects. Now, when we are talking about education for an individual, it is expected that through education the person needs to grow. Certain values, attitudes, skills need to be developed among a person. So, when we say education needs to develop an individual, various aspects of the person's personality needs to develop through education. So, the function of education for an individual can be all-round development of a person. All-round development here I mean the physical, emotional, social, mental, all sort of development of a person. It needs to develop the three domains of a person, and these three domains can be affective domain, psychomotor domain, and cognitive domain. Now, education when prepares the individual by providing information knowledge, it is actually developing the cognitive domain of a person. When we are talking about psychomotor domain, education also prepares a person for teaching various skills. So, when the person learns the skills like reading, writing, mathematics, presentation, all these skills need to be looked upon to be developed through the process of education. So, it needs to cater the psychomotor domain also when we are looking upon education to develop certain skills among the person. When we are talking about affective domain, education also needs to help in developing the emotional aspect of the person. The person needs to emotionally grow through the process of education, because nowadays your emotional development plays a major role as compared to your cognitive domain. As a person, what kind of person you are, how you deal the situation, what is your relationship with others, that also matters a lot in getting a job or in your future prospects. So, education serves the purpose of doing all-round development of the person. The next function which comes under function of education of an individual is development of integrated personality. Now, when I say integrated development, here I mean holistic development of the personality. Again, we can relate this with the all-round development of the personality. Functions of education toward individual can be education for integrated growth. Education should help in growing the person. It should be helping in integrated growth of a person. Education for preparation of adult life. Through the process of education, it should prepare the adult for life. Now, when we say preparation for adult life, it should develop certain skills and competencies among the person which will help them in getting a better job opportunities or in order to sustain in whatever job they are doing. So basically education is preparing the individual for adult life. It is not only teaching the skills which are required on the job, but of the job also there are different skills required, and it is through education it prepares the individual for adult life. Education should also help in socialization. When the child comes to school or when the person comes to college, the process of socialization begins. The person interacts with various persons, and in the process of interaction, the person is also grows and his socialization also takes place. More the socialization, more is the growth of a person. Education for development of higher values of life. Education also prepares the individual for higher values like cooperation, tolerance, honesty, sympathy, etc. These values can be taught through the process of education, because nowadays we are grumbling a lot about deterioration of values because of the exposure of media and because of the kind of changes happening around us. So it is a responsibility of the education for development of higher values among life, because if you have a life without values, it doesn't make any sense. So it is a greater responsibility or dire need of the hour to develop those higher values among the individuals. Education for all-round development. So in all, the function of education towards individual is all-round development of a person. Education is also looked upon to serve society. Persons only individual growth is not enough in a society. The person may grow individually, but when the person socializes, when the person stays in the society also needs to develop. So, how much your education is helping in societal development is also expected from education. Education should be made available to all in the society. So when the government opens large amount of schools, basically it is helping in the process of developing the society. So by opening various colleges, institutions, schools, NGOs, we can help the society to grow, to society to develop. So education does have a functions towards society as well. Which are those functions? Let us have a look. Through the process of education, education should develop social responsibility among the individuals. Now here, social responsibility is the individual is accountable for the society. The social awareness is required in the individual when he is staying in the society. He should take care of the society's members as well. He is not only accountable for himself, but he is, when he is staying in the society, his accountability towards society also increases, and society does expect or looked upon individual to fulfill the societal needs. So individual does have a societal responsibility, and it is through the process of education that social responsibility can be developed. Education also is required for citizenship training. We in the country of India, wherein we have a democracy, and in democracy the citizens plays a major role. So all the citizenship qualities needs to be developed in the process of education. It is the tomorrow's citizens who are actually ruling the nation. So the qualities required for a citizen also need to be developed through the process of education. Education should make the person aware about his rights and duties and responsibilities. Being a member of a society, what are my rights, what are my duties, and what are my responsibilities? If these things are taken care by education, the society will be a better place to live and society will grow and develop. Education also helps in doing adjustment in the society. As we know, society is made up of different persons with different nature, different characteristics. So the chances of non-adjustability is more. So basically, education should teach a child to adjust in society. And more the adjustment in society, more will be the society's development. Education also should help in conservation and promotion of culture. What are our heritage, what are our customs and traditions need to be transmitted from one generation to another, and that should be taken care by education. Because the customs, traditions and culture also does plays a major role in person's day-to-day life, and they needs to be preserved, they needs to be conserved, and this particular task should be taken care by education. So in this way, when we are looking at education, we do expect certain kind of expectations from the education, and these expectation can be for an individual, it can be for a society, it can be for the individual development, and it can be for the societal development. Now education's job is not only limited to individual and society. Education also need to prepare an individual for national development. So by providing the education, education should also help in national development, because as the nations grow, it will automatically help in development of the individual and also the development of society. Now what are the functions of education towards nation? Let us have a look. Education should help in increasing productivity. Each and every member or each and every individual should be trained in such a manner that that particular person should contribute in national development. It should help in developing various vocational skills which will help the person to become self-reliant, and more the person is self-reliant and more the person is earning, it will help in contributing towards the nations, and in this way the productivity can be increased. Education should also inculcate civic and social responsibility among the individuals. The person should have a civic awareness and he should be socially responsible when we are talking about national development. Education for achieving national integration. In the country like India, which is a multicultural nation, wherein we have a difference on the basis of caste, religion, language, etc., etc. So there are chances of disintegration, and this integration can be avoided through the process of education. Education prepares the individual to live with harmony, to develop national integration. Education also is looked upon to train for leadership. As we say, the democratic country like India, wherein we are looking at today's children as the future leaders, we need to train them for leadership because they are the future leaders and they should be well equipped with all the skills required to be an effective leader. And this kind of training should be provided through education. Education should also contribute in total national development. The national development in terms of economic, social, political, cultural, all sort of development needs to be taken care through the process of education. So, education does perform the functions toward the individual, towards the society and also towards the nation. Now, let us have a look at problems faced by Indian education system. Indian education system is undergoing through various problems and challenges. The first and foremost problem is no quality education. The kind of education which is provided in the school is not developing any kind of skills, attitude and values among the students. Because of lack of infrastructure facilities, because of lack of awareness, because of illiteracy, the kind of education which is provided to the child is not of good quality. And because of lack of infrastructure, it is a hindrance to provide quality education. Many of the time, the teachers are untrained. They have been appointed without considering their professional competencies. So, the faulty methods used by the teachers can also be one of the major factors in deteriorating quality of school education. So, lack of resources, untrained teachers, faulty method of teaching leads to poor quality of education in India. Then again the evaluation which is done in the school is again faulty evaluation. It is only based on memorization of facts and only bookish knowledge is tested in the process of education. It is not taking care of developing skills and attitudes among the children. So, we are only producing the quantity but somewhere we are compromising the quality as far as school education is considered. But the situation is not same all over India. We do offer education in different boards and education in different states are different. We do have different curriculum. So, lack of uniformity of curriculum is also can be considered as one of the important factor for compromising with quality. So, no quality education is the prime most problem which India is facing as far as school education is concerned. The second important problem or challenge in front of India is lack of infrastructural availability, lack of resources. Many of the schools doesn't have a bare infrastructure like classroom, toilets, drinking water facilities, etc. etc. So, lack of resources is also one of the hinder or hurdle for providing education in Indian schools. There are many of the schools wherein we don't find a proper classrooms, proper sitting arrangement for the children. So, lack of infrastructure can be one of the problem for Indian school education. Third factor or third major challenge which Indian schools are facing is untrained teachers. Teachers, quality of teaching is not good. Many of the time teachers are not trained. They don't have mastery over their subject. They don't have mastery over the skills of teaching, and because of that it is hampering the quality of education. As the teachers are not competent, there is no innovations in teaching, and because of that students lack desire for learning. So there is a lack of desire, there is no motivation for learning because of the faulty methods used by the teacher. Teachers makes use of monotonous way of teaching. Only textbook is used while teaching, and because of that students don't find any kind of interest in learning. So the next problem can be lack of desire for learning, which many of the schools are facing, and this lack of desire may leads to absenteeism. So students don't feel like coming to school. They don't consider learning as a enjoyable activity. So lack of desire is one of the major problem as far as Indian schools are concerned. As the student lacks desire for learning, it leads towards absenteeism, And absenteeism ultimately leads towards the problem of dropouts and stagnation. Student may fail in the same class year after year because of the faulty methods of teaching and because of the lack of desire for learning. So, the problems of dropout and the problems of stagnation starts because of the earlier problems. And because of stagnation, students remain in the same class year after years, and after that particular failure, parents take away the child from the school. Many of the times, because of the fulfillment of the needs of the society, because of the needs of the family and parents, student needs to leave the school, or many of the times students are made to leave the school in between. They cannot merely complete even the 10th standard. So the problems of dropout and stagnation is a major challenge in Indian schools. Though education is available in some places, still education is not accessible to all. Still many of the sections of the society, like deprived class of the society like girls, SC/STs and minorities, these people cannot reach to education, or because of many cultural values and cultural taboos, it is not allowing them to go for education. So education is not reaching to all, it is not reaching to the masses. Non-accessibility of education is also one of the biggest challenge in front of the Indian schools. There are also problems like gender issues. In Indian society, there are a lot of gender differences. When it comes to send the child to the school, it is always the boy is given preference to have an education, and it is always the boy who will getting all the opportunities for high education. Whereas when the education of the girls comes in picture, girls are not allowed to continue their education after certain age. They are made to go for marriage, or they are made to work at home. So because of gender differences, education is also a big problem. There is a very less ratio of girls education in India. So various gender issues also does play a major role in Indian education system. The next biggest problem is the cost of education. Though Government of India has made the education compulsory and free at primary level, but after primary level, if the child want to pursue education, the family is not in a position to provide education to the children because of the poverty in India. Poverty does not allow them to continue further education, and even the education which is offered in different boards charge exorbitant fees, and even the demands of the schools are rising day by day, which compels a child to pay more fees, and because of that the cost of education has increased by leaps and bounds. So a common layman cannot afford the cost of education. As the teachers don't teach in school, parents made the child to go for tuition, and wherein the child needs to pay twice, thrice for getting that education. So the cost of education is increasing day by day. Various boards are charging different fees from the students. So cost of education is also biggest question as far as Indian education is concerned. Child may get a free and compulsory education at primary level, but what about secondary and higher secondary education? Who will pay the burden of that education? That is the biggest challenge or in front of the country like India, wherein we are still stuck up with poverty, illiteracy and so on and so forth issues. So lack of awareness among the parents. Many of the times students are first generation learners. They don't have the environment at home which is favoring them to continue the education, and cost of education plays here a major role. They cannot afford to send their children for schools, and that is why cost of education can be considered as the biggest hurdle in education in India. As far as school education is concerned, school education is the responsibility of the state. So it is the state which provides the grants to the schools. Aided schools do get the grant, but the unaided schools do not get any kind of grants from the schools. All the private schools, they need to manage their expenses from the fees of the students. So non-availability of funds is also acting as a hurdle for getting a education in India. The government doesn't have a fund to provide to the schools. Many of the times even the teachers' salaries are not paid because of lack of funds to the government. So government really needs to think of generating various funds which will fulfill the demand of the society. So lack of funds by the government is also one of the hurdle for getting education in India. There is a wide gap between education provided in the school, education provided in the college, and the demand of the industry. The skills, the values, the attitudes, the competencies which are required in industries are not fulfilled through the process of education. After getting the education, the person only gets the degree, but that degree is not matching with the industrial demand, and it is not preparing the individual to perform that job which is required in the industry. So there is a mismatch between the industry's demand and the supply. There is a mismatch between supply and demand. Whatever education we are getting, which is totally based on memorization, is not equipping the individual to sustain in life, to fulfill the demands of the industry. So that is also biggest challenge. After having certain education, still the person remains jobless because of the lack of skills required in the industry, which is not provided by the education. Social and cultural barrier also does play a major role in creating a problem for education. Still there are parents who are illiterate prefer to keep their children at home, though it is free and compulsory. They don't want to send their children to the school, and this problem is basically seen in deprived sections of the society in India. They don't allow their children to go to school only because they want to make use of their children for their economic necessities. They prefer to send their kids on the fields or on doing some kind of work rather than sending them to the school. Again, there is a lot of emphasis of culture, traditions, wherein culture emphasizes that it is not necessary for a girl child to have an education. So many of the time the girl child is stopped after certain years of age, and parents or family prefers to get the girl married rather than sending them to the school. So various social and cultural factors, various social and cultural customs, tradition does play a major role in creating a problem to make the education accessible to all. So accessibility and quality are the major problems which various Indian schools are facing nowadays. So today we have learnt about the meaning of education, types of education, structure of education, and the problems faced by education. What are the different problems which are creating a hurdle for getting a education? So Indian education system is basically facing a lot of problems, and we need to think of solution of these problems, and these solutions can be sought out at individual level. If we look at government, or if we keep on saying it is the responsibility of the government to take care of education, then the situation will not change. We have to start this at personal level. What I can do to improve the quality of education? I should also be concerned about the education of the child who is residing in my locality. Whenever I come across with any child who is not going to school, it is my moral responsibility to tell the child to go to school or to aware the parents for sending the child to the school. Then and then only, when we start the personal effort at our own level, then and then only, to some extent, we can achieve the aim of making India a literate country, making India a developed nation.